The day my family's cabin came down wasn't just a demolition, it was a gut punch that echoed through every memory tied to that place. One deafening crack, and 30 years of laughter, fishing trips, and quiet summers by Willow Creek dissolved into the muddy water. I stood there, chest tight, watching the dust settle while a woman in a sharp blazer smirked like she'd just won a game show. The crowd neighbors I'd known my whole life clapped. Clapped. Like the splintered remains of my grandparents' legacy were some kind of spectacle. I wasn't sure if I was breathing or if the ground had just vanished beneath me. The worst part wasn't the rubble, though. It was their eyes, locked on me, waiting for me to crack. And maybe, just for a second, I almost did. 3 hours later, the creek looked like a battlefield. Gray dust blanketed everything within 100 feet, and pieces of our cabin hand-hewn beams, a shattered window frame floated like wreckage from a sunken ship. I waded ankle-deep in the shallows, fishing out what I thought was my grandmother's hand-carved ladle, when I heard boots crunching on the gravel path. Margaret Hensley, 54, with a real estate empire and a smile sharper than a switchblade, strode toward me with 2 HOA board members trailing like loyal hounds. She pointed at the debris, her voice dripping with false pity. 2 years of unpaid fees, Daniel. This is what happens when you ignore our notices. Her crisp navy blazer didn't have a speck of dust on it, like she'd planned this moment down to the last detail. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity, but the sight of my family behind me stopped me cold. My father, Thomas, stood with the quiet intensity of a man who'd seen worse during his years in federal service. My mother, Evelyn, watched Margaret's face with the precision of a diplomat trained to sniff out lies. My younger brother, Ethan, gripped his fists so tight his knuckles glowed white, his tech background making him allergic to the kind of nonsense Margaret was peddling. Me? I'd quit my desk job at a government lab a year ago, tired of shadows, but I still knew how to spot a con. The cracked wooden sign Hawkins family, EST 1972, bobbed in the murky water, a relic of summers when my grandfather taught me to cast a line from that very dock. That cabin wasn't just wood and nails, it was my lifeline. 3 years ago, I'd turned it into a glamping retreat, pulling in steady cash from city folks chasing a taste of creek life with Wi-Fi and hot showers. Now, it was gone, reduced to splinters and broken dreams. Margaret kept talking, waving at the wreckage like she was unveiling a community garden. It's all legal, Daniel. County court approved it. But her hand kept brushing her throat, and she wouldn't meet my eyes when she mentioned the court order. Evelyn noticed it too, her head tilted slightly, a telltale sign she'd caught a lie. Ethan, silent until now, was snapping photos of the rubble, but I knew he was running specialized software to dissect documents faster than any courthouse clerk. Within minutes, he showed me the court order's signature, pin pressure off, spacing wrong, digital artifacts screaming forgery. I decided to test Margaret's story. "One question, Margaret," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Who decided our cabin falls under HOA rules? Got the original boundary maps showing we're part of your community?" Her confidence cracked like thin ice. In 3 seconds, she went from smug to stammering, glancing at her legal advisor, a wiry guy in a suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Her answers were a jumbled mess of surveys and records, but the advisor's legal jargon couldn't hide his panic. That's when I remembered the 1972 property survey my grandfather left me, tucked away in a drawer. I pulled up a photo of it on my phone, the one showing our cabin sat 50 feet outside the HOA's jurisdiction. The revelation hit like a grenade. Margaret lunged for my phone, but I'd already backed up the images to the cloud and shared them with my family. The shouting match that followed could have been heard in the next county. Margaret insisted boundaries had changed, but her trembling hands as she fumbled her car keys told a different story, not anger, but fear. As she sped off, leaving tire tracks and a cloud of dust in the twilight, I knew this wasn't about fees. Something bigger was at play. 3 days later, the community Centera drab building smelling of stale coffee hosted an emergency town hall. 25 residents packed into creaky folding chairs as Margaret laid out charts, graphs, and a court-ordered demolition notice with a county seal that looked convincing to anyone who hadn't seen Ethan's analysis. "The Hawkins family ignored our notices," she declared, waving the document like a flag. But Ethan's software tore through the forgery, exposing digital seams invisible to most. Evelyn, across the room, Clocked Margaret's tells her left. I twitched. Her weight shifted, classic signs of deception. I stood up, voice clear. When did the court decide our property was under HOA control? Can you show the boundary map? The room fell silent, save for the hum of fluorescent lights. I held up the 1972 survey. Phones flashed as residents filmed, and the meeting erupted. Margaret lunged for the document, but I pulled it back. Boundaries were updated, she shouted, her voice cracking. Evelyn stepped in, her diplomatic calm cutting through the chaos. If boundaries changed, there'd be public records. Can you show them tonight? Margaret's face cycled through red, white, and sickly green. She mumbled about verifying records and fled, her advisor scrambling behind her. But her eyes held terror, like she'd crossed someone far more dangerous than us. That night, Thomas's garage became a war room. Old intelligence gear, satellite uplinks, laptops casting blue light hum to life. Ethan hacked into the HOA's network, uncovering a thread labeled Operation Creekview. Messages detailed plans far beyond fees, mentioning $80,000 wired to Margaret's husband's account for compliance facilitation. Evelyn traced financial trails through shell companies, revealing corruption stretching beyond our sleepy town of Millhaven. The real shock came when Ethan intercepted messages from someone called JR, traced to a federal facility in Maryland. Thomas's face paled. That's a site I reported to in my active years, he said. A drone buzzed our house at 2:27 a.m., its infrared cameras snapping photos through our windows. Ethan crashed it in our backyard, revealing it belonged to a non-existent security firm. Thomas powered up an old military comms device, making a 7-minute encrypted call that left him grim. We've got 48 hours before this gets out of our hands, he said. JR might be someone I know. I set a trap, spreading word I'd sell the property cheap to escape the mess. Margaret bid, calling to meet at the old fishing pier at dusk. Ethan rigged hidden cameras, and I met her under a blood-red sunset. She wasn't alone. A man in a dark suit, introduced as Victor Lane, a consulting associate, oozed quiet menace. Margaret offered a relocation package, but her voice faltered. Victor's vague talk of private investors and quick transactions screamed cover-up. Evelyn, hidden in the reeds, later confirmed Victor's military posture and handler-like control over Margaret. When Margaret whispered, "Join the HOA or face worse than the cabin," the threat was clear. I turned off Ethan's recorder, knowing we had evidence of extortion. As they left, Victor's final glance chilled me like he was marking a target. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. Fake posts and a deepfake video painted me as a violent thug attacking HOA staff. Local news ran a hit piece, Creekview Chaos, quoting neighbors like Sally from the diner who'd flipped on us. The town splitsome waved doctored screenshots. Others backed us after Ethan's pixel-by-pixel debunking of the fakes. Ethan traced military-grade signals from the HOA clubhouse to Maryland, intercepting orders for Hawkins neutralization. Financial records showed a web of payments, implicating a larger network. Evelyn's contacts revealed similar scams targeting properties near sensitive facilities nationwide. Our creek was a stone's throw from a classified lab no one talked about. Then, green banners blanketed the creek, proclaiming, "Save our wetlands." A man, Mr. Carter from the EPA, claimed our cabin violated federal law. His badge looked real, but Thomas spotted his military ticks, and Ethan found no record of him in EPA databases. His car tied back to the drone's fake firm. Neighbors rallied, chanting, "Save the creek," while pointing at our house. State scientists debunked the wetland claims, but their voices drowned under the green propaganda. Surveillance spiked. FBI, CIA, private gear, all watching us. That night, Margaret slipped me a waterproof package with coordinates and a note. "They have my daughter. This is where the evidence is." Her eyes were hollow, her confidence gone. Ethan found 3 other families had sold cheap under similar pressure. The scam was a machine tested across states, using environmental cover to seize land near government sites. Victor realized we were onto him, his movements frantic. At 6:45 a.m., Ethan's sensors caught him loading a speedboat. Thomas piloted our boat in a heart-pounding chase, Ethan tracking via drone, Evelyn on radio with feds. Victor's desperate calls revealed orders to burn records, silence witnesses. Cornered in a marsh, he confessed. 12 communities targeted, run by corrupt CIA officials Marcus Tate and Laura Voss Thomas's old colleagues. Margaret appeared, handing Evelyn coordinates to a command center, whispering, "They threatened my daughter." FBI agents swarmed, led by Agent Emily Ruiz, who knew Thomas by a code name. "We've tracked this for 18 months, she said. Your family forced their hand. The scam, Operation Clearwater, spanned the country, stealing land for espionage safe houses. Margaret had been coerced, her daughter's life on the line. 6 months later, I stood on our rebuilt cabin's deck, the creek gleaming gold. Federal funds restored it, better than before, and the glamping business thrived. The Hawkins family, EST 1972 sign hung proud, steel-backed, but bearing my grandfather's carvings. Our fight sparked national debates on government overreach versus citizen rights. But a hidden document in the deck's secret compartment knew signatures. New codes hinted at a deeper conspiracy. Thomas joined me, staring at the water. "I thought retirement would be quiet," he said. "I almost believed it was over. Almost. What would you do if your home was targeted by a shadow network? Would you fight, knowing the cost, or walk away? Who's really pulling the strings in your town?" Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe if you're ready to uncover what's hiding in plain sight. Share this with someone who loves a story that bites.